Okay, this video is going to cover the affairs powers. It's going to align with reading from 5.4. You should be on slide 22. Here are the big questions that'll come up. How are treaties made and approved? That's the main foreign affairs issue. What are the powers of a president as commander in chief? That should have a capital C. What are the legislative and judicial powers of the president? Okay, so those are the issues. Um, Power to make treaties. Treaty is a formal agreement between two or more sovereign nations, meaning they're independent and they have the right to make a treaty. Uh, Generally, the Secretary of State of the United States negotiates treaties. That's the main diplomatic representative for the U.S. There's ambassadors for each country that we have good relationships with. Um, Sometimes they pull the ambassador if things go poorly. The Senate must approve the treaty by two-thirds vote, and then the treaty lasts for a while until someone breaks the treaty. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but it's supposed to happen. Uh, yeah. So that's the formal treaty. These treaties tend to outlast the president. They can also make executive agreements. I'm sure that's going to come up next. But they don't often last longer than the president that's sitting in office. The Senate must, Congress can repeal by passing a contrary or opposing law, or they can just ignore it and not pass it. That was kind of what happened with the League of Nations. Executive agreements. These are pacts between the president and a head of a foreign state. They usually both follow them because they're agreeing to them. Yeah, I just did it again. Oh well, I'll go back through. It doesn't require Senate consent because it's just the president and one other person. Usually, they're routine agreements based on existing legislation. They're trying to just keep going. Uh, might be some exceptions if they're real specific, as like in 1940 there was what's known as the Lend-Lease Act, and basically we got British bases because they had all kinds of imperial territories. Then we wanted spots to refuel our navy, and um, basically we gave them destroyers to help them fight the Germans um, in exchange for bases throughout the world. But these executive agreements may be repealed by the next president. They don't have to be, but they often are. Uh, we also have the power of recognition. This is the power to identify a new country as being part of the world order, um, saying it has actual legal value, and that comes with rights in international law. Um, Generally, we recognize countries we favor quickly and don't recognize countries we disfavor for a while. We recognize Israel quickly. It took a long time for us to recognize communist China. Doesn't Even when we recognize it, doesn't mean that we necessarily approve of that country. That we may, but just saying we know we need to start having relations with these people to economically, politically, militarily, otherwise, because it's just better for world peace as well as economics. The government has the power to rescind or recall diplomatic relations at any time. So if things get off, they can pull back. I think this is what happened in Syria when it felt like the government there was doing bad things to their own people. Um, this is known as, you pull your embassy, you're cutting off foreign relations. Usually something severe needs to happen. Like when our embassy was overrun in Vietnam, they were literally destroying documents and having people fly off out of there in helicopters because there was a legitimate fear that once the communists took over fully, that they would start, you know, punishing people that oppose them. with death, injury, or other bad acts. Uh, so the U.S. withdrew there in '75, and it was a big deal because there was like helicopters going out, and these helicopters were packed. It also happened in Iran in 1979 when the Shah fell. Our embassy got overrun, and we needed to pull out of there to save people. But it's really hectic because all the people there um, might be in opposition, so they're really kind of running for their lives sometimes. As commander in chief, the president's powers are almost limitless. Let's make sure we look at this one closely. Just got a cartoon. Usually, delegate these powers to subordinates like chief of staff, secretary of defense, whoever's running the army, Marines, Navy, whatever. But occasionally, they don't delegate much. If the president has a lot of military experience, like George Washington, Ulysses S. Grant, and Eisenhower, those are all major generals. There's been quite a few undeclared wars too, somewhat common, especially lately, because there's been lots of end runs around the war powers of Congress. I think Afghanistan and Iraq, particularly lately, but Vietnam too. None of those had formal declarations of war. I think our last formal declaration of war was following the Pearl Harbor attack in 1941. I think there was a formal declaration of war in World War One too, which I know was April of 1917. But the undeclared wars go back to the second and third presidents too, Adams and Jefferson. Uh, but constitutionally, it's a little suspect. So we don't know for sure that it's just fine. Some people think it is. Some people think it isn't. I think that's reasonable because why would you have the power to declare war given to the Senate if they don't get in a say and they never have to declare war? Let's take a look. This is the president, commander in chief. I think interacting with maybe is it Navy people from the White House of Washington. The president of the United States. Oh, it's loud. People get beat up. Huh. Someone is that someone in the military or is that Vietnam? Let's see if we can make that bigger. Let me get a bigger look at it. You can't see things. You want to see them? Stretch them out a little. See if it helps. Let's see if that helps. Looks like there's something on this person's shoulder. I don't know. Maybe it's just military. Anyway, all right. In other words, from the fireside chat, you see the president has a lot of power. See the radio? That's what I assume it is. All right, let's move on. There's more war powers. Presidents will send in armed forces quickly in response to retaliation strikes. Reagan sent troops into Grenada. Clinton sent troops into Bosnia. So when you need speed, then it does make sense that the president can act independently. But you could almost always say you need speed because that's a reasonable component on military policy. So I don't know uh, how long that's acceptable, but there's probably some limit, or the president's war making powers could be unlimited, uh, and that would violate, a major constitutional precept that all powers are limited. Anyway, it's often said that bad facts make for bad law. Vietnam really expanded the war making power. And basically, it was this war powers resolution. I think it was called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. And it was passed over Nixon's veto in 1973 because of the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. The president had a lot of power to make war in Vietnam. So this war powers resolution passed in 1973 was trying to limit the president's power to make war, and Congress was saying we want to take some of that power back. So it's at time limits and notification rules for the president with Congress. Now, there's some debate whether the president could just ignore this and say, I'm commander in chief. That's part of my duties. But if we go back to no one's above the law, rule of law, probably shouldn't. So, yeah. Anyway, that's still a matter of constitutional debate. Legislative powers. They consider the president the nation's chief legislator. That was kind of just acquired under FDR as he took a major leadership role as president. The Constitution gave the president the power to recommend measures to Congress. Anyone can recommend measures to Congress, not just the president. So I don't know what that means. But he has a little more moral authority because of his role. But he asked them to act on legislation he feels vital to the nation. But they don't have to listen because they're duly elected too. There's also a requirement to give a State of the Union message. That's been taken to mean it's a yearly message, and that's why it's a big deal. But there's also a budget message and economic reports that come out from the president's office because they pay for a lot of people, military, administrative, etc. This is a picture, I think, of Congress and the mall. Let's see. Yeah, that's Congress. All right, more on legislative powers for the president. The second major legislative power is the veto. You have the power to reject a law that comes across your desk. In 1996, there was an attempt to create a line item veto to rein in spending. To just cross off certain line. I want to veto this part, but I'll accept the rest. But the Supreme Court said you can't do that. You got to take the whole bill, or you got to reject the whole bill. And so this has been ruled unconstitutional. Sometime some presidents have said, "Well, do I need to listen to that because I'm the president?" I think they do need to listen to that because no one's above the law. Remember Magna Carta. But yeah, so really, the veto should just be the whole bill, not just lines of it. Anyway, on to judicial powers. They can grant federal reprieves and pardons to criminals, basically. A reprieve. A reprieve is a postponement of a punishment. All right? On death row, and grant you a reprieve for 6 months, 3 years, 5 years, whatever. And someone can be duly convicted under the law, and the president can say, pardoned, forgiven. Nixon was pardoned. Scooter Libby was pardoned. This is a little controversial because, um, you might be giving someone the next job under the condition that they pardon you. Yeah, I'll make you, Gerald Ford, the next president, if and only if you pardon me. So those kind of deals make it a little shady. I think one year the turkey got pardoned. I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure they pardoned the Thanksgiving turkey. See, Tom Turkey. I think Bush did that. They liked Tom, so instead of being dinner, he was he was forgiven and allowed to live. I think so. Vegans celebrated. I think that's nice. Though I'm not mad at the turkey either. More judicial. This also applied to amnesty. Carter gave amnesty to Vietnam War draft dodgers. A lot of hardcore people found this really offensive. There was a lot of draft card burning too. Uh, when you give amnesty, this can apply to all cases except impeachment and violation of state laws. There was amnesty given in the 80s for immigrants. That was a big deal in the community, especially long-time immigrants. I don't know why this is spelled wrong, but let's fix it. So they can't get blanket amnesty to like um, GTA or 187, the state laws, but they can give amnesty to violations of federal law. You could say tomorrow, everyone in prison for marijuana before 2015, peace, move on. Oh, we got a power couple. Who's the power couple? Da, da, da. These are you. Okay, raise your hand if you know who this is. All right, and I'm going to give 5 points for the first person I call upon. All right, that's it. I then do the quiz. You're on your own on the quiz. Peace.